What's going on, boys and squirrels? Today we're going to be replacing this transmission. The reason why we're going to be replacing this one is because there's a slight little bearing noise, and maybe when I pull this one out I'll show you, or maybe I'll take it apart in another video or something and we'll see what exactly is making the noise. But in a lot of the other videos you can actually hear that bearing noise in the transmission, and I've got a couple videos up of the sound of it driving and whatnot. So I have another video up a couple of years ago, whatever, of how to actually remove a transmission in detail, and this is not going to be that. It'll be a little bit of removing it, but it's mostly just going to be like a little fun video of us, you know, pulling this transmission now. I'm going to go pick up another transmission for it that has 27,000 miles on it. It's not rebuilt, it's all original. In the video I probably say it's rebuilt because I'm not very smart and I forget to not say that. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and do that. Let's head on up north and see if we can pick up this transmission and you know, driving through the good old Ontario's. Let's see if we encounter anything interesting on the roads. Probably not though. Stuff like that never happens.
Richer iced coffee. Go for one today.
Interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Okay, so we're here at my buddy Mocha's house. Actually, sorry, it's Marble and Mocha's house. But they have a nice, freshly rebuilt transmission here that they've agreed to sell for a cup of peas. I don't really like the shift knob. Do you guys got some shift knobs for me? What is that? Did you lay an egg? Did you finally lay an egg? Nope. Oh, don't pick the lens. Nope, I need to get that. Watch out. Oh, okay. It's not an egg. It is a very nice shift knob that I will keep though. Hey, how's it going? Marble, when are you gonna start laying eggs? When am I gonna get some eggs? What do you think about that, Mocha? Yes, they have heat. It's very cold here. Move your head. It's 158 degrees. That's how much the temperature of the pad is. Their actual house is like warm, but not that scorching hot. But guys, gonna make a mess today. Good. A cup of peas in the ducky cup. You want to get some of that? This is a little bit nicer for them. Go eat your peas. Why would you go inside the house? You have perfectly good peas right there. Maybe they want it delivered like Uber Eats. Here, you can have the Uber Eats in the house. Look at that service. Okay, anyway, we'll make the journey back. We'll bring this transmission home and we'll open her up, make sure she's good. She's got about 27,000 miles on her, so she's a little bit newer than the other one. But hopefully there's no grinding noises coming out of this boy. How you guys doing? Camera shy. Oh, you knocked all your peas on the ground. What are you doing? So the first thing we're gonna do is what I like to do actually. Instead of removing the entire seats, because it's a little bit annoying, I like to just pop the little bases out, get them out of the way, and play the fun game of trying not to nick those on the way out. But you know, if we take our time, we should be fine with it. There's not too much effort, there's not too much work in taking out this transmission. It's basically just getting rid of all the interior pieces here. You got to get rid of the radio and the tower for that. Shift knob has to come out, the whole, you know, 9 yards of that. There's a little tunnel underneath that has to come out. Disconnect your slave, and the release bearing, or the bearing on the clutch fork, which I think is the same thing. I'm not too sure, but anyway, that bearing is fairly new. Maybe it has less than 5,000 miles on it on this one, but of course on the other transmission it's gonna have 27,000 miles. So we're gonna swap this one onto that one, but still use that transmission on this one, because this transmission came out of a barn find car that was sitting for, I don't know, a couple decades or so. Or apparently it was just 1 decade, but I don't believe it. And I threw it in this thing just to get this car running and driving on the road, but I didn't change the oil or go through it. I just put it in because I want to, you know, get going. And clearly that bearing was fine when I first started running the car, but of course, you know, old oil and whatnot, it went bad. But let's go ahead and tear into this thing. Just pop the seats out. Oof, they're dirty. The good thing is, while we're here, or maybe after, I don't know, at some point, we can go ahead and clean things up. And you find goodies like the bolts that hold the steering wheel in place. Look at that. We're already making progress. I was wondering where that went. You know, we'll deal with it later. We'll just remember that it's in the ashtray. Alright, so we can take floor mats out. You don't really need those. Maybe we'll put them here because we're going to be stepping over here a little bit. So we'll just stick them right there. There's a wrench to disconnect the battery because it's, you know, Lucas wiring. So, simple things. We can just take off this quick release center console situation. Most people would put the screws down, but if you leave everything loose, you can actually get more room for yourself basically by removing this, and then, you know, room for activities in here when you have the soft top off or the hard top. I'm just gonna screw the shift knob a little bit. We don't need this guy in the way. Shit, something fell. We're gonna pretend we didn't hear it though. Rip. Oakley dokley. So now the next thing we gotta do is get rid of this little radio tower. Just 4 bolts, 2 on each side. They'll come out here, and on the top there's gonna be 2 more bolts, and those bolts also hold in the radio and they hold in the tower. So double whammy. Once that's done, we can go ahead and remove this carpet. I'm gonna be honest, there wasn't really much holding those bolts, and 2 of them were already like finger loose. But let's pretend they were tight anyway. Probably a good idea to take this trim off on the dashboard. That might help. Looks like on mine it's just a couple of Felipe boys. Should be able to just pop this guy off now. Nice. The top screws that were supposed to hold in this tower don't actually fasten to the metal bracket that goes across here. It's kind of just, you know, just hanging out here. But we'll make sure to pretend that we did it the right way when we put it back in. Yeah. So slide right out. And what I like to do, because I have the memory of a goldfish, just take a little picture of how those wires went back into this radio. Just so when you go and rip these boys out, you have kind of an idea of how it goes back together. Yeah, don't worry about this electrical. Probably not a fire hazard. Anyway, we can go ahead and take this guy out now. Slide right out. Just make sure she doesn't get hung up on anything. Sweet. Now that that's out of the way, we can go ahead and take a look at what we need to remove these. Probably like 7/16 bolts or something. Oakley dokley. Now that all those other bolts are removed, you can go ahead and get rid of these 4 holding on this little shifter boot thingamabobby. For mine, it's just some Robertsons that are probably not original. Now, to remove this tunnel, you might have to play with your shifter a little bit. So to start, you gotta put it in first, and to get it out, you put her in neutral, and then finally, second, and it'll slide right out. Okay, so while we're in here, you're gonna take off this little cover over here. Not really much holding it, just a couple screws on the side, into the middle. For these boys, I think they're 9/16s or something like that. Just take them off. To get to the bottom ones, you might have to roll the car back and forth just a little bit. This guy's gotta come out. This guy's gotta come out. And those are just 2 rubber mounts. And of course, you got the reverse light switch. That's all there is from the inside here, back here at least. I mean, when you get to the belt housing, I'll show you how to do that. It's not really too tricky. There's some bolts on the bottom that are gonna be hard to get to if your car's kind of lower like mine. But we'll get through it. I don't even think we'll have to lift up the car at all, to be honest. I've done this a few times. I've never had to lift the car too much. But we're gonna try to squeeze in normally today. Anyway, yeah, so we'll get rid of all that stuff in the inside first. These just pull apart, just like that. And yeah, these guys will be a little bit tricky because as you turn the bolt, these kind of flex a little bit sometimes if they're not too good. But these are pretty new mounts. I just put them on last year. So we're gonna go ahead and unscrew these from this transmission and put them on the new one, of course. And yeah, this transmission is perfectly fine. All the gears cycle, it's really good. The only thing is that little bearing noise, and I'm thinking it's right around here because you can hear it inside the car like pretty loud, right? It sounded like the shifter, something's rattling, or I don't know. Well, anyway, we're gonna replace it. Why not? These things are actually pretty cheap. And I made a mistake. One last thing, your speed sensor or cable, you just one little bolt over here, pop that off. This will slide right out. And yeah, then that's it for back here. Then we just got to deal with the stuff on the bell housing. But for now, let's take care of everything inside here. Okay, that's all of these bolts. Now we're gonna go ahead and take off the cable for the transmission. I don't like to use impact tools on a aluminum housing, so we're gonna do this guy by hand. So this guy is gonna be a little 1/2 inch. I'm not sure if we can get a ratchet on it. We'll give her a shot. Okay, so before we go ahead and pull off the clutch or whatever, slave cylinder, and all those bolts off of the bell housing, what we're gonna do is support the engine, because the engine is being supported by 2 mounts in the front and the transmission itself, which has the 2 mounts in the back that we just undid. So if we go ahead and pull this transmission out, what's gonna happen is the engine is gonna just drop a little bit, and that's gonna make it really hard to put it back in the new one after. But also that's gonna put extra stress and wear and tear on that mount there. So what I like to do is grab just a little block of wood and a little scissor jack like this, and you'll just pretty much by hand raise it up just under the pan with a piece of wood on top, and that'll hold the engine where it needs to be, so it's easy to put the transmission back in after. So something that's interesting to note is that there's a little bit of engine oil dripping off of the oil pan bolt. So what we're gonna do about that is pretend that we didn't see it. That seems like a future me problem. Oakley dokley. We got that guy there. Put this boy on top. There's barely any room. And we'll just go ahead and give her a little toitin'. Even by hand you can get it to where it kind of lifts a little bit, but that's pretty good. We're gonna leave it like that. And so for all the bolts along the top here, I think it's pretty much gonna be just 1/2 inch, just nuts there, and then the studs will come out from the engine. And then maybe 1 or 2 of them is probably gonna be the whole stud that comes out. But down here, you got, looks like 9/16 2 bolts on the starter. And then down below, it's just gonna be more bolt and nuts of the 1/2 inch variety all the way around. So you just, you know, not really gonna film too much of that whole situation just because it's pretty, you know, hard to get angles that are like good to watch. But yeah, so I'll get back to you when those are all done. Now once you got the starter bolts out, you just slide it back out of the way a little bit. You can disconnect that wire there and totally pull it out, but I just leave it dangling. Yeah, and now the only thing left to do after all those bolts are all the way zipped out is we gotta hop in here, see if we can get these to separate a little bit, just enough so that we can go ahead and lift the transmission up vertically and out of there so there's some clearance to pull it out. Now that's when we're gonna have to take this cover off so that we can actually get a little bit more clearance for pulling this transmission out. You can go ahead and remove these screws that are holding in this little cover. And now you should have a lot more leverage. And we just got to get this transmission to come up and over this drive shaft. If your drive shaft ever gets a little bit sticky, like mine, I didn't put a gasket in between, just bonk it with like a rubber mallet and it'll come right apart. Then the last thing you gotta do is just take off that top bolt. I think there's a bottom bolt there on the clutch slave. And then you're pretty much good to start yanking this boy out. Flip the fork. Alright, she's out. Should be able to just drag her backwards a little bit. Oh, a little bit of rust there. That's okay. Transmission out. So upon inspection of this whole assembly, for some reason, even with the clutch like centered and whatnot, this doesn't look like it's aligned perfectly. And I don't know why, if it's just my phone angle or what, but it looks really off. On camera for some reason it doesn't look off, but it doesn't line up correctly as far as I can tell. And yeah, I don't know what to do about it. It would suck to just put this in place and have it not work properly. I guess maybe you can see a lot easier with this angle. It's not like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain this. Like I'm looking right down there, but it's not aligned correctly. You know what I mean? Like this is looking straight down with the clutch aligned, but the pressure plate is off. I do not know how this could happen. Just another setback that I don't need to deal with, but yeah. So I'm a little bit stressed out from that, because if I damage the pressure plate taking this transmission out, it's gonna cost me like $300 for another one. I have a spare one, but it's not exactly new, and I don't want to put any old stuff on this thing, but it is what it is. But back over to this side, yeah, everything seems okay with these transmissions. I hope, you know, when I go through with this, I can find something wrong with it. That's why, you know, justifies me pulling it out with the bearing noise. But this one seems alright. Shifts, seems tight, seems good. I mean, this has 27,000 miles, this has 40 something thousand. But when I put this in the car, the oil was sitting for like 10 plus years, and a chip tooth was found in the magnet and a whole bunch of nonsense. When I drained this oil, it was black, but it was clean. There was no metal in it at all. So this is like a better shape, I think, inside, internal wise. So it shouldn't be as noisy, but we'll see. Hopefully I can figure out the situation with the clutch and the pressure plate and put it all in. But I guess that's it. I'm a little bit stressed out and annoyed. So what we're gonna do is, instead of breaking something like I like to do, we're gonna go fishing. We're gonna catch some minnows, and that'll relieve our stress. And maybe I'll sell the car to the duckies, who knows. But yeah, for now I'm just gonna wait on parts to come in before I put this back in place. So let's relieve some stress. Oh, I know I got something in here. Yes, very good stress reliever. Do some winter fishing. Oh yes, I caught a big one. Come on, come on, come on. You're good, you're good, you're good, you're good, you're good. Relax, relax. All right. Oh yes. Okay, back you go. Nice. Take care, come here.